Welcome back to the Girlfriend Doctor Show. Today, I want to pause and celebrate something truly special. We are highlighting two incredible women, Tracy and Angela, who had the courage to take time for themselves to heal and to transform their lives. So often, as women, we give endlessly to everyone else. I know you're nodding your head. You can relate to this. We give to our families, our work, our communities, and we put ourselves last on the list. Well, Tracy and Angela remind us that when we finally choose to care for ourselves, to prioritize ourselves, when we listen to our bodies and honor our needs, we don't just change our health, we change our lives. And we get to do those bucket list items that have been on our list for a long time. We get to enjoy our relationships, our passion, our purpose. We may see things that are possible for us that we thought were out of our reach. So I will share with you that these are not celebrity stories. These are not fairy tales. These are the journeys of real women who were willing to share their truth with us in the hope that it might inspire someone else to take that first step. So let's lean in and honor these beautiful stories of resilience, courage, and renewal. And most of all, give you permission or accessibility to take that next right step that's right for you. Well, welcome, Tracy, to the Girlfriend Doctor Show. It is great to have you here with me today.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. Thank you.
Well, I am excited to share your story with my audience. First of all, this is how I learned about what you were doing and going through. One of my dear friends and medical colleagues, Dr. Angela Crump, said, Anna, you have got to talk to this woman. She has been doing your Keto Green because Dr. Crump runs Keto Green. She ran Keto Green classes through her
Mm.
clinic in North Florida. And she says, you got to talk to Tracy because she's just had this amazing transformation. And so she sent me a picture of you both and a voice message introduction. So so that's how we're connected here today. And then and I've just kind of been following your journey over this time. So Tracy, well, first of all, welcome and tell us a little bit about how you are here today.
All right. Well, again, thank you for having me. My journey with you started in 2020, but in reality, my whole life has been a journey leading me up to this point. I have a twin sister. We were raised by a single mother, and like a lot of lower income people, we just didn't have money for good food. I'm 45, so to give you a sense, my childhood was in the 80s, and I think that's where that was like the cusp of TV dinners and latchkey kids, and just go to the store and get all your packaged food. And so that's what we ate growing up. We didn't know any better. If you think about it, back in that time, no one really promoted good health. It was just eat this, eat that. And for the most part, growing up, later years of elementary school, moving forward, we were overweight, which is not a surprise given everything that we were eating, which was junk. And the weight slowly started creeping up. I can remember in middle school already being a size 14, and in high school, kind of keeping that 14, in college up to about a size 16. And then by the time I finished graduate school in 2003 and started my first professional job after graduate school, I was up to about a size 18. And we had always been told, oh, you're bigger boned. And where I went to school, it was a residential campus. And so even though I'm still eating like junk and didn't exercise on a regular basis, I'm at least walking the campus. I think that kept the weight stable. And but by the time I'm in my mid 20s at that point, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm maybe 20 pounds overweight. And I go to the doctor, and they had you step on the scale. And I remember her saying 220. And I was shocked because not only was I not only 20 pounds overweight, I would have had to have lose that 20 pounds to get to 200. And that really shocked me. Here I am thinking I have a master's degree. I'm a smart person, always been in school, love school, very devoted to my studies. But I clearly don't know the first thing about my own health. And I was very fortunate at that time. They had started a Weight Watchers at Work program. So I started Weight Watchers, and being the diligent student that I was, I did everything they told you to do. And over the course of about a year or so, I lost 100 pounds.
Wow.
And like,
Wow.
wow, I'm losing this weight. I've never been this good shape in my life. I started walking on a treadmill and doing exercise. I felt great. And I was able to maintain that until about my early 30s. And I think losing the weight really brought to light some hormone issues that I probably always had. And I think just being overweight and all of that, I can remember as a teenager, I never had a regular cycle. And whenever I did have a period, it was always very excruciating, very painful, and just I don't know how to say this nicely, but a ton of blood
Yeah. The
everywhere.
crime scene periods, right?
Yeah. And facial
So
hair, acne, all of that going on. And so that kind of should have been a sign we had some hormone issues going on here, but was able to
and
lose the weight. Uh,
Tracy, you were up until that time, you'd had regular checkups and stuff, and the doctors didn't ask about your periods or
as a teenager, no. And this would have been, and I think it just went to being a little bit lower income. We really didn't go to the doctor if we were, unless we were sick. And somehow my sister and I really didn't get sick a lot. We might get the cold, but both of us had perfect attendance all through high school.
wow.
All 4 years of high school, we had perfect attendance.
Oh,
So
wow.
we didn't get sick.
Yeah,
No
yeah,
doctor really addressed anything. I remember we went one time for the acne and they gave us antibiotics and told us to go and buy Oxy-10. I don't know if they still make Oxy-10, but that's what we used.
yeah,
It was printed over the counter benzoyl peroxide cream.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
that's what kind of just thrown a Band-Aid to fix
on it,
that.
not
But
addressing the underlying.
no one really addressed anything with
Yeah.
that underlying at all.
And when you
And
started to gain weight, was that like in your teens? Like when your
mhm,
period started? So when your
yes.
period started, you shifted. That is typical PCOS.
And,
That
which
is
is now
typical.
I know what I have.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and
So
but no
then in
one
your 30s, you'd lost
mhm,
the 100 pounds.
mhm,
So late 20s, early 30s, you'd lost the 100 pounds. Well, first
mhm,
of all, that celebration, right? Like that's huge. And you must have made a decision like, okay, I'm going to join Weight Watchers. This
mhm,
is my goal. You know, the shock, it sounds like when you didn't even realize you were that overweight, 220 pounds. And how tall are you?
mhm. 5'5".
5'5". So, like technically, almost 100 pounds overweight, right? And so
Mhm.
what, like, I mean, to like be driven to lose that 100 pounds, what was your mindset?
At that point, I told myself I had no more excuses. I'm done with school, and eh, had always been my excuse. I'm studying. I'm doing this. This is my priority. My health became my priority,
Yeah.
and I think at that point too, I was just tired of being overweight.
Hmm.
And once I started losing the weight, and not only were other people noticing, but I was just noticing how much better I felt. And
Hmm.
that for me was the motivator. And if I can remember in the middle school being a size 14, and here I am, I'm a size 10 or 12. I've never been that small in my life. And that for me was motivating. And just being able to go for walks and exercise and the endorphins, that it really feeds off itself. And
Yeah.
that's what motivated me to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So then what happened? So you've started recognizing these hormonal issues, which were
Yes.
there the whole time, just
Yes.
masked.
Well, what had happened was in my early 30s. I was at the time, I should mention to you, I'm originally from Ohio and I grew up around Ohio. I was in Columbus and I had the opportunity for a job promotion and I transferred to Gainesville, Florida in 2010 and I was gaining weight. And I mean, I wasn't as stringent with my Weight Watchers as I had been, but for the most part, I'm eating healthy. I'm still doing my workouts, but I'm gaining weight, and I gained back about 30 or 40 pounds, like, but I'm not losing it. Went back to stringent Weight Watchers. I'm not losing it, and like, I don't know what's going on here. And I also should mention too, in my early 20s, I went to the OBGYN for the first time, starting those annual well woman checkups. And you want to guess what they gave me to control my cycle?
Birth control pill.
Birth control pills. So I also had been on birth control pills at this point for about 10 years. And again, me being the person that follows instructions to a T, I never missed a pill. I did everything. So I've been on that for about 10 years. And I went to my family physician in Gainesville, and he admitted, I don't know the first thing about women's hormones, but my wife knows a doctor named Dr. Angela Crump. And so that's when I first met Dr. Akey. She became my family, family physician, general practitioner, and she was a hormone expert. And it was clearly a God thing for me that I found her. And working with her and then with an OBGYN in Gainesville, and they said, this tests you for PCOS, but you need to go off of your birth control pills in order for us to test this and get some blood work done and do some scans. And the blood work at that time showed okay estrogen, but the ultrasound showed polycystic ovaries, which
Mhm,
I'm really not surprised.
mhm,
But I tweaked my diet at that point, and the OBGYN had recommended the South Beach diet. And if you're not familiar with that, it's lower carb, lower fat, higher protein. And even though I was quote unquote eating healthy food on Weight Watchers, it was still a lot of carbs and still a lot of processed food.
mhm.
Your 100-calorie packs, and I can have a slice of cake if I can do these points. But now knowing with PCOS, my body can't tolerate that sugar. My body can't tolerate that. I also was drinking wine, and I completely gave up alcohol at that point, and I haven't touched it since. And just stopped the sugar and did the South Beach diet. And for the most part, I was able to lose that 30, 40 pounds and kept it off. Dr. Akey helped me too with my hormones. And we realized though, okay, so you're losing weight, but we continued testing and my estrogen though was plummeting. And I had no progesterone. And just for me, kind of being a weird thing, I also had very little FSH or LH. So
Mhm.
there's clearly something really wrong with me here. And that's when I also, in addition to PCOS, I was diagnosed with premature ovarian failure and early onset menopause. Probably onset by years, honestly, of over exercising, stringent dieting with the Weight Watchers, where I wouldn't eat any fat. If you're telling me fat's bad, I'm not going to eat that.
Yeah.
And just a lot of general stress in my life with moving to Florida and the job. And I think my body just crashed at that point.
So
And
Tracy, a hypothalamic amenorrhea. So then you had no periods during
Oh,
that time?
correct. That's exactly what happened. When I forgot to say that, when I went off the birth control pill, I never had another cycle.
Wow.
Never came back on its own. Never.
Wow. Wow. And you
Mhm.
were how old during that time?
I would have been, that was in 2013 and 2012, actually, when we really tried to get this figured out. When I was born in 79, so 32, 33.
Yeah. So very, very young to experience all of this happening to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, okay, so off the birth control pills, then no
Mm-hmm.
period. And
No
then,
period.
yeah, so a lot of stress, a lot of crazy stress going on. And I
And the main,
really, that definitely is something that I see over and over again. And that's because the FSH and LH was low instead of high, like in
Mhm.
menopause.
Correct.
So, yeah, if it wasn't communicating, hormones weren't communicating with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I realized the biggest stress at that time was my job. And as much as I love my job, I had a lot of night and weekend work just by the nature of the field that I was in at that time. And I knew that I had to give it up. And so I job searched and I found a job in Orlando and moved to Orlando in or I should say June of 2013. I should back up and say too, in January of 2013, Dr. Akey and I decided to start. We had tried just progesterone replacement, taking it orally, Prometrium, for the fall, the latter part of 2012, and it just wasn't enough. We felt that I actually needed to supplement estrogen. So we started a custom compound in early January of 2013 that combined progesterone and estrogen with the troche, taking it under my tongue. And that that helped definitely with like the moods and everything else that was going on. And I moved to Orlando and I did start having some bleeding and spotting, probably from the estrogen. And then I developed a polyp in my uterus. And later in 2013, I did end up having a uterine ablation. At that time, I thought that was the best option for me and my health. And actually, the bleeding came back within a year. And in December of 2014, I had a partial hysterectomy and with my uterus and fallopian tubes. And again, I felt that that was the best decision at the time. I don't regret it at all,
Mhm, mhm.
for my health. That was 2014. I'm still, I did not, when I had moved, because of insurance changes, I was no longer working with Dr. Akey at that time. I had an OBGYN here, but he continued my custom BHRT for me, and I stayed on that, and everything was going okay until I got married in 2015 and I started to gain weight again. And like, this is just not working. What's going on here? And I just did research on my own and came across the keto diet. And it had been recommended for menopause. And so I did keto. And for the first time in probably since I was a teenager, I'm eating fat again. And it was scary at first because you hear so many bad things. But within a week or so, I had lost 5 pounds. Like, this is great. I feel better. This is great. And so I did that for about 2 years, but I did bad keto, and that I really did not emphasize what I know now would be the alkalinity portion. And I know I was not eating enough protein for how active I was, because I still was an active swimmer. And then I did a lot of muscle work with Pilates and yoga and body strength exercises, and probably eating too much fat. And my meals would be like 3 eggs, and then everything else would be coconut oil or some olive oil on this, and like a teeny little tiny plate of broccoli, and then eating like a gob of almond butter. So that, no wonder I'm getting weak and tired, weak and tired, weak and tired.
Mhm.
And again, found this thing on the internet, and I still kick myself, but about the carnivore diet. And I'm sure you have your own thoughts about the carnivore diet. And I stupidly started the carnivore diet because everyone's saying, oh, it will fix your hormones. It will give you energy. You might gain some weight at first, but we promise you, you'll lose that weight. And so I started the carnivore diet, and this would have been in about August, September of 2018. And yeah, I started to feel better. And I should mention too that I had had some incredibly stressful work situations. My husband and I had a house built, and to have all of this happen all at once, I, at the time, likely, I don't say I had a full out mental breakdown, but probably came close. So I have
Mhm.
all that
Mhm.
going on, and I'm
Mhm.
switching to this carnivore diet. And within a week, I gained, my scale went up 10 pounds in a week. And that should have been my first sign that this is not good. But I was so desperate at that point just to feel better, I stuck it out. And then in early 2019, I'm reading more and more that if you're on the carnivore diet, you don't need hormones. You don't need to do this. Just stick it out, stick it out. And I wanted to see if my ovaries had come back to life. So I stopped my BHRT and got some blood work done. And sure enough, I'm showing estrogen, right? Like, I don't need these hormones. So I stopped them, and boom, within overnight, practically, I gained 50 more pounds. So I
Wow.
ended up gaining about 70 pounds. And I'll send you
Wow.
the picture that
And you
I
were still
showed you.
doing the carnivore during that, like that was
Yes.
following, and that's no carbs, right? You're like, all right,
Exactly. I pretty
no
much ate
carbs, meat and no
nothing.
carbs.
I ate nothing but some type of meat product. And a lot of it was steak or pot roast. That was it.
And
And
did you have any pain like in your big toe by chance?
no, I never had gout. I never
No
had the
gout
gout or
symptoms.
anything.
I wonder what your uric acid was during that time. I mean, I had the same experience.
That's what I'm wondering. It
Yeah.
had to have been sky high. But what I did have with blood work during that time was my liver enzymes were always off.
Mm.
Like, they were always elevated, really poor liver enzymes.
And you're not drinking alcohol, so that was out of the question, right?
Correct. Yes.
Fatty liver.
Uh-huh.
Hmm.
And I want to keep my mouth shut, and you can edit this, but you clearly know with me without saying anything what my thoughts are on the carnivore diet for women.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And again, not everyone is the same, right? Like it may work
Mm-hmm.
for the short term in certain
Mm-hmm.
situations to just pause
Mm-hmm.
and, because roughage can be hard to digest, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you for definitely for long term. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
I gained weight. I had the same thing. I have the physiology too that otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
had with my insulin not in control, I would be PCOS, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was over 240 pounds at one point too. So I am like totally resonating with your story, Tracy. Like
Mm-hmm.
I know, and up, right? We're smart chicks here.
Mm-hmm.
We're smart chicks. And I'm glad you kept experimenting. So then what happened? So now how
It
frustrating too. Like all of a sudden, here you are married.
mhm.
You're like in building a new life, building a new home, all of this stuff. And now you're gaining the weight again. Like emotionally, I mean, I know for myself, it's like, oh my God, I'm here again. Like,
Yeah,
how broken am I? Right.
that's exactly how I felt. It was just like this continuous mental breakdown. And it got to the point where I stopped working out. I mean, it really, I didn't do anything. I just stopped. And
Like
I,
nothing's working.
because nothing's working. Why work out? I can't hold myself up in my Pilates poses anymore because I'm so heavy. So why am I going to do this? And it was just, I was miserable. And so 29, the end of 20, we're approaching the end of 2019. And I knew that I needed to just, this isn't working anymore. Carnivore's not working anymore. I'm gonna go back to keto. And the only person I've ever trusted was Dr. Akey. And my husband and I were in a situation where even if I had to pay her out of pocket, I could. So let me reach out to her. And I did. That would have been early 2020 and got an appointment in February of 2020. I also have found a workout program. I don't know if I'm allowed to say exactly what I do, but
Sure.
it's called,
Everything, share
okay,
everything.
it's called Yoga Burn, and she has different workout programs, but I had started with her Total Body Challenge and her Trim Core Challenge. They're only 15 minutes. You can mix and match, but I like them because they progress in that you're never going to get what's the word I'm trying to think of, used to it,
You're
but
never going to get
plateau.
stalled,
Yeah, you're never
plateaued.
going
Yeah.
to start or plateau because you're always building up. And then even when you go back and do it again, then it's like you're starting from scratch and the body, if anything, is stronger as you go through. But we all know what happened in March of 2020. That's when everything
Yeah.
shut down for COVID.
Pandemic. Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough that I was able to work from home. And that gave me time too, where I could commit to this, where I started, I do my yoga burn every morning. And I should say too, it's not as if I'm doing a heavy exercise every day. I would alternate one day with more slower traditional yoga, more than meditation, and then alternate it with the days that I would then consider to be an actual workout.
Yeah.
And
I remember with Dr. Akey, we did a live Keto Green call for, her clinic too during that time because she was, fully gearing up, going outside, doing COVID
Mhm,
checks. And she's like, look, this is going to keep you healthy. And so we switched to the virtual Keto Green,
mhm.
coaching during that time, or she did. And so, yeah, I remember I popped in for alive during that time once or twice too. So yeah, I mean, you had a good partner in Dr. Akey encouraging you. And then what happened?
And that
So
would have been
now,
2020. And I gotten blood work done, and we decided to just supplement progesterone. And this is another case too, where I'm thinking, oh, I've got estrogen, right? Well, fat cells make estrogen. That's probably why I had estrogen, not really that the ovaries were fully normal again. But so I went on your balance cream with the progesterone and the other hormone. I can never pronounce that. I call it prego
and
because for whatever
pregnenolone.
reason I could not say that word and I don't know why. But I went on the balance cream and I started your Mighty Maca. And so every morning after my workout slash yoga, whatever the day happened to be, I was drinking the Mighty Maca. And that too, with the balance cream, the Mighty Maca, just the eating better. With definitely within 2 weeks of noticing the difference, but within a month, I felt like a new woman. And it just stuck with the plan, tweaked it as it went on, where I would get cravings for like rotating vegetables, different proteins, mix and match, but always sticking with my workout. And just my motivation was I felt better. And if anything, I felt like that depressive fog that I had been in the past couple of years was finally lifted. And like I'm keeping up with this. I can do this. And it took about 2 years total. I want to say I reached my current weight in about early 2022 or maybe like mid to late 2022. And for the most part, I've held it. I'm honest too that I've gained about 5, 7 pounds depending on the day since May. Just again, some life stresses that have happened. And I'm a little bit older now. I'm 45. Dr. Akey and I have talked about whether or not we maybe need to go back and add some estrogen. For now, we're just doing a little bit more progesterone, seeing how that weighs out. And I'm trying to be more mindful about um, balancing my cortisol. I know a saying of yours that I love is it takes more than hormones to fix your hormones or to balance your hormones.
Yes, exactly.
And this is something too that I don't think hormones can necessarily fix right now. I need to fix what's causing these stressors in my life and then how I'm handling those stressors. And until I get that under control, I really don't want to start messing with my estrogen again. That's something that we can work with in the future. But I've gone back and I reread. I know you had mentioned a couple of things on your Instagram and about the hormone fix, having a really good chapter about how to manage cortisol and adrenal fatigue.
Mhm.
And I'd always forget about that because I tend to focus on the food, but I've gone back and doing that, just a more intentional meditation, more intentional journaling. I'm a very I'm devout in my faith, and much more intentional time with prayer and time with God, and trying to feel the Holy Spirit with me, and to feel that, and knowing that God is using this and letting this happen, to know that, Tracy, you've steered from me and you need to get back with me, and child, let it go. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm
Mhm.
46:10. Focus on me, not your life circumstances. So until I feel that I'm in fully back in control of that again, then I'll worry about that. But still doing my workouts every day, still doing my Keto Green. And I think that's, if even if I did gain anything, I'm not worried about it because I'm still at a healthy weight. And just with doing healthy eating, healthy mind, and working out, whether it just be even just stretching or flexibility or yoga, that's so important. And I do want to mention too that I do intermittent fasting. I try to do 16/8. There are some days if I have to eat a little bit earlier, or some days if I'm stuck in a work meeting, it might be a little bit later, but I do that. But again, in the morning, I am having my electrolytes first thing when I wake up. I do that, drink those when I work out, have the mighty maca when I'm done. So I guess that also would count for breakfast as well, if you want to look at it that way. But just staying hydrated. I always have water with me. I don't do caffeine. I'm one of those people genetically where I just can't tolerate it.
Mhm.
And even if I do decaf, I can tell it makes me jittery. So I don't do any caffeine at all. I think that has also helped me. I think caffeine can also, you're the doctor here, but I think for me personally, caffeine would affect my hormones,
Yeah,
not
affect your
not
adrenal glands too, especially
mhm,
in times of stress. So, you're living, I mean, really, I'm just sitting here just like in awe. Like we've never met, had a conversation, and you've been doing, all of this, going through all this, and thank God, right, for Dr. Akey and
mhm.
having that relationship working with her, but really for you being able to do your detective work. I say, get your Nancy Drew on, figure out what is impeding your success, what is causing this, getting to the underlying reasons of it and addressing it. And and not being afraid to try something different, not being afraid to, break a pattern. And what would you say, Tracy? Well, first of all, thank you so much for sharing your story and being so vulnerable in it. One last word of a word that brings a smile to your face, or a cheer word that you've used, or as part of the Keto Green, as part of the Keto Green journey, I like people to choose a cheer word, a word that you can use to kind of reset your body and physiology and kind of bring you into the present moment and bring a smile to your face. Do you have a word that inspires you? Have you been using one?
Well, my word, sunshine. There's something about just the word sunshine. It makes me happy. It makes me think of blue skies and just rest and feeling at peace. I love nothing more than a blue, sunny sky, seeing the sun, feeling the warmth. And that's how I center myself. If I try to get out and go for walks at work during the day. And definitely easier too if I'm at home and off work. But just that's my special word. If I were to
Mm.
keep it up anywhere, just the word sunshine. It centers me. It makes me smile. Makes me think of heaven. It just sunshine.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Tracy, for being with us today. I know your story inspires so many women, and I'm really honored that you're sharing it with my community here today. So, for all of you that are listening and you're at your own journey and you've been struggling with whatever you've been struggling with, or thinking, or know someone who is struggling, I think it's that, put your Nancy Drew hat on. Don't give up on yourself, right? That's the number one thing you cannot do is to give up on yourself. But as Tracy said, what are small changes that I can make right now? What can I integrate bit by bit by bit? It doesn't have to be, okay, I'm stopping all of these things at once and I'm following this to the book. It's like little by little, it's a gentle approach. So knowing what works for you, and that also at any age, it's not too late.
Welcome, Angela. I am so glad to have you here on the Girlfriend Doctor Show. I've been seeing your videos in our Magic Menopause community group and being able to chat in some of our live conversations, and you've been so inspiring. So, welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here, Dr. Anna. You're one of my all-time favorite people and doctors because you walk your talk, you're vulnerable, you're transparent, you genuinely care, and you teach other busy, stressed career women like myself to make time to look into their own health. I really appreciate you. If anyone meets me today, 2024, hopefully you're going to see a vibrant Angela who's 61 years young, but who looks way, way better than that, and someone who really believes that joy and fun without guilt, without a feeling that we owe it to other people to stay at work or we owe it to other people to do what they want us to do. And instead, it's our second spring. And how I got to this new spot was really through pain. That's why, Dr. Anna, I related to some of your stories. In 2010, my brother, who was 42 years old, was on his way home from work. He pulled into the median strip. He was a man of faith, never really drank, smoked, a good guy, youth pastor, entrepreneurial, and he transitioned. No one could figure out why. There didn't seem to be anything wrong. He had just been to his doctor. All of his health numbers were looking great. The only thing that gave me comfort when they found him, he had a smile on his face. So we said the angels met him. So that happened
Wow, I'm
in
sorry.
2010. A week later, my mom had an aneurysm, I think out of grief, right? Because no one's expecting to bury their child. And you've been in those shoes, you know what that feels like. So ironically, my mother's sudden death from an aneurysm, they said she was 95% brain dead, and then it took a bit for her to transition. They were the two people who were so pivotal for the entire family. I got through that honestly by bearing the grief, helping to make sure that the funerals went well, helping to take care of my beautiful niece who was 3 years old at the time, and my brother was in the process with his wife of adopting 6 foster kids. I went back to England and I basically unknowingly buried that and put my head down. I had 1,200 people under my purview at that time. I had 6-year-old and 8-year-old. I'm like, I just have to, plow through it.
When you
And so
mean you had 1,200 people under your purview, what does that mean?
I managed, I was a leader for 1,200 people,
Wow.
actively day-to-day management. And it was an important job and one where I just didn't think or feel that I had time to grieve, right?
Mhm.
It was unconscious. I didn't knowingly do that, but in retrospect, in hindsight, oh, I buried that because I needed to quote unquote survive. And my daughters being young, my husband working at the same time as me, all that went through my mind. So fast forward 2019, all that grief is underneath. My really dear friend, who was my mentor and who looked like me, she went into hospice on a Friday, and by that Tuesday, she was gone. And my other friend, who had lupus, never ate a vegetable, right?
Mm.
So I like Keto Green. She transitioned in December. Those two deaths rocked my world because they had been my pillars when
Mhm.
my mom and my brother transitioned. So I'm a high powered executive. They were higher ranked than me, like they were number 3 and number 4 in their respective organizations, right? So uh, just getting it all done.
Mhm.
But what I noticed after their passing, number one, people's worlds fell apart for a couple weeks, but no one jumped in the casket with them.
Mhm.
Nobody, right? And it left a world of hurt when my mom and my brother transitioned. They had been so pivotal. But in all 4 cases, this is why I love your program, none of them did self care the way that you encourage us to do it. And so I'm sitting there asked to give the eulogy type of comments from my friend Pat's funeral. And the thing that really just hit me in the gut, and which is why I do the coaching work that I do today, I'm looking at her, I was there 15 minutes after she transitioned and she was still somewhat warm. she hadn't gotten, I guess when you die, you get cold, but
Mhm.
she didn't feel dead yet. I'm not around a lot of dead people, but she didn't feel like she had really, gone, right? And all I could think about was, wow, all this stuff that she said we were going to do. Like we talked about travel, we talked about going to all these places in Europe. And I remember saying, on this side of heaven, none of that's going to happen for her. And I made a promise to myself that I was going to start to change. So from 2019, which is a year before COVID, I started saying, how can I be different? I don't want to keep being a blue, black, or gray suit person at the head of the table, predominantly in an all male environment, eating a Snicker for my lunch. Sorry.
That was one of my favorites, by the way.
Yeah. Not having time to go to the bathroom, asking my office manager, schedule me 5 minutes. I got to go to the bathroom, right? And never getting home or maybe being gone from 7 until 10 at night. Or sometimes my boss would say, and I said, yes, no boundaries. Hey, could you cover a 2 a.m. meeting? Could you cover a 4:30 a.m. meeting? Could you lead the 8:30 stand-up meeting? And I thought that was a compliment. And I said, sure, right? Not realizing the lack of sleep, which your program taught me, can really mess up your hormones. Not realizing that constant stress, even good stress, can mess up your hormones. But knowing that my two friends transitioned, I was like, you know what? I don't want to go that path. Like, you just sort of know I don't want to do what they did. So I started doing the opposite, but not really knowing how to do stuff. And then you came on Sherry Salata's program, and I loved your title, The Girlfriend Doctor. I said, I could use someone who knows about, your body, right? I grew up a pastor's child and very religious. We didn't learn too much, right? Um, and then just not being so interested in the medical part, I didn't know a whole lot of stuff. I didn't know how to spell hormones beyond, I could probably, try to do it, but past that, had no knowledge. And so for me, your program has been an absolute answer to prayer. And I would say that after uh, a good 2 years of investing in myself and starting with your Keto Green 16, listening to your podcast, kind of watching what you were doing, I started eating differently. I started thinking differently. I started working on my sleep. I got that sunlight and sauna to help with. I had big exposure to mold that put me in the hospital in Japan. So I learned from your test stuff, oh, toxins can cause you not to lose weight. So I put that in place. Then I ordered those glasses from the place that says you need to let sunlight in, and you told us to go for walks in the morning and at night to help our circadian rhythm reset. So basically, I treated you like, not quite like Jesus, but if Dr. Anna said it, I'm going to try it, right?
Wow.
And it resulted in over the course of, so I started your program before I went to Italy in 2023. When I was in Magic Menopause, I'm walking through the train terminal at King's Cross. And this was a little bit funny, but embarrassing, but funny more. So I'll share it. I'm walking, I'm like, I think my pants are starting to fall off, right? And I was like, no, it's not the case. And I kept walking. I'm like, oh yeah, it's my pants. If I don't grab them, they're gonna fall off, right?
Oh, no.
Because losing so much weight. Your balance cream, your Jolva cream, your Mighty Maca, and the Keto Green shake, those are all additional lifesavers. So the funny part with the Mighty Maca, so I was on a trip. I'm a part-time travel agent, not to be a travel agent, but really just to get busy, stressed career women to take a trip and go somewhere. So
Nice,
we're
nice.
sitting in the hotel. We were in Rome, and I had the little green, the travel packets.
Mhm.
So I put two in a they give you a small little European cup. I put two in that. I'm like, that's not enough room. So I asked for a bigger cup and I put it in there. And I'm sitting there at the round table, and the person beside me is like, that stuff stinks. And she really said it dismissively, right? And that was like my first week using it. So I said to her, oh, uh, this is from a doctor I've met, and I really am admiring her work. I want to get healthier. And so I moved to a different table. I wasn't going to stop taking my stuff. I moved to a different table. And after I drank it, then I came back and I joined the group. So she now is saying to me, what's that doctor? Because she can see the transformation, right? And I said, her name is Dr. Anna Cabeca. And I really think that the Mighty Maca helps you to detox, help your adrenal glands. Am I saying it right?
Adrenal glands. Yeah.
Adrenal glands. And I said, she was a lifesaver for me. And so she's the funniest example because she was so yeah,
Anti-green, right? Like it
and
looks
making
like, I
sure.
mean, it does. It looks like Fear Factor, but it tastes good, right?
Yeah, 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 it tastes delicious, like, I put it with lemon. So that was a bit of a funny one, and then with the, balance, right? Okay, how you got me on that one, when you said, "Hey, I put some health benefits, of course, in it, but for those who care about your skin, if you apply it, it helps you not to have wrinkles." So I became real committed, right?
So that's how I work
Yeah,
too,
I'm
Angela.
faithful to that. And then the Jolva cream, when you said, "Hey, we take care," like, I don't leave the house without lipstick, and I definitely wanna have moisturized lips. And I thought, "Okay, those aren't for public viewing, but why would I have my, lips on my face to look really great and then the rest of my body maybe not to have had the same type of attention?" So I use that Jolver faithfully. I take the, breaks that you recommend to make sure my body continues to produce what it's able to produce. But when you said that our periods are the start, basically, I'm going to say our reproductive natural cycle, and that we should view menopause as part of that continuum, that made a lot of sense to me. And, I never paid attention on periods. I was fortunate not to have really bad ones. I also grew up with 5 brothers, so it wasn't as if anyone was gonna commiserate with me if I said I was hurting, forget it. Um, but then the understanding that menopause is a healthy part of our process of living, and it can be viewed as the second spring, or it brings us into more wisdom. All of that has been so helpful. I wish that I knew some of that before my friends got sick. I wish I had known some of that to tell my mom. And even the guests that you've had on that dealt with guys, right? That was so helpful because, like my husband, he now has his own Mighty Maca. At first, he was taking some of mine. He's like, "Oh, I like how I feel when I take that stuff." And I said, "This is my Mighty Maca. I need it." I said, "You can order some." So I helped him to get on his own subscription plan, and he's looking more youthful too, right? So it's not, you didn't create products that just help the women, right? That's my care about busy, stressed career women, but you help, if you love people, including your husband or your significant other, you want everyone to be vital and healthy. My brother's passing so suddenly, um, you know, it's left a hole that a lot of people, maybe they don't even know how to address it. I did what's it called, a Facebook Live last week. I'm doing the 31-day live challenge, and I labeled it Unresolved Grief Blocks Joy. And I talked about, you know, my experience with that. And that's where I acknowledged that I had buried that grief. But after my two friends transitioned, I realized you got to address this because it's really blocking your ability to have joy. So fast forward to Angela of today, it's because I've done the work. I've gotten the help with grief. I know now that I'm worthy. Jamie Kern Lima's book Worthy is awesome for that. I know that I'm worthy of time for myself. I know that to be a good example to my daughters, even if they don't see it, it's better for me to show them mom is taking care of herself. Mom is investing in things that help her to stay vibrant and healthy. So I won't be in a nursing home. So I won't be dependent on my kids to say, what are we going to do for mom, right? I want to be like what you said, Dr. Anna. I want to be vibrant at 90. I want to be sassy at 80, right? I want to be able to walk.
Naughty at 90.
Yeah, yeah.
Here you are, a leader, an executive of people, right? In the boardrooms, in front of, like, the head, like leading 1,200 people. So it's that, ability to manage, its ability to discern priority, and, ability to bring out the best in people. And then making that shift. Okay, now I have to do this for myself. Like, what was the mindset around that? Like, how did, realizing, so was it,
the death of your brother, the death of those dear friends, to feel those loss, to feel that loss. And, and, like just to make that shift.
I think that for me, it's a great question. My mom and my brother, I was 46, I want to say at that time. My brain was so type A that, I mourned them. Like I called for the first time after we had just come in the door a week after burying my brother to England. My family lives in Maryland. The phone rang. This was probably pre-cell phones. And they said, Angela, your mom has had an aneurysm. Could you get back home? And I was like, I'm empty tank here. And so I called the psychologist at my job. Normally she's briefing me on this is what's happening in the workplace. And I said, hey, I need to ask you something for myself. So I told her what was going on. And I said, I don't have it. I'm just depleted. I'm supposed to take my 6-year-old to Nice for her birthday. She was turning 6, so she was 5. What should I do? And she said, go to Nice, do what you can for a couple of days to recenter and then go back home. And so I'm so happy. It was like the best advice that I got because I sat on the beach in Nice and tears just flowed. And I think that was making space for space.
Mhm.
So when I came back and walked into that ICU, I'm so happy. I think I only spent like 3 or 4 days. My family stayed the rest of the time, but I flew on to Maryland. I'm getting hit left and right with what should we do? What should she get buried in? What do you think? It was like no break. And I said, hey, I've just gotten off a plane. I haven't seen my mother yet. But you hold your questions. I'll be able to help you, but let me go see my mother. Setting boundaries, right?
Mhm.
So after those 2 deaths, it was a blur, to be honest with you. I really buried it, right? I'm pretty good at compartmentalizing. It's only my friend Pat's death that was in 2019, that was in the September timeframe. It's because she looked like me. That's what got my attention, right? She's
Mhm.
dead. And I remember I lifted her hand. It was a beautiful hospice room, beautiful wood paneling right up the street from my house. I lifted her hand and the hand just dropped. That wasn't normal for me, right? I'm not used to being around dead people. And then I put my hand in front of her nose because she didn't look dead. And I'm like, did they make a mistake? Is she breathing? And when I felt nothing back, I'm like, she's really dead. So in that moment, the grief, the sense of, man, she talked about us going so many places. None of that's going to happen. That was when, like, a flagpole went into the sand, and I said, it will not be my life. I will not go out like this.
Mhm.
And so I I didn't know how to change at first. I just knew I didn't want that. So
Mhm.
sometimes the beginning is you just start doing the opposite. I knew she worked until 9 o'clock every night. I knew she went to work on most Saturdays and half day Sundays because she would call me. I might be at work on the Saturday, right? I took Sunday as the Lord's Day, so a lot of times I wouldn't go in. I stopped some of that. I'm like, she's dead. Whatever
Mhm.
it was, I don't want to do the same. And she was Harvard graduate, mentor to so many people. Her death was pivotal.
Yeah.
Then COVID, when COVID hit, all of us were home. And during that window, if you weren't thinking about the possibility of dying, you're just not telling the truth to yourself.
Mm.
If you're human, the thought of could I die? Could I catch this? It had to hit at least one time. Even if you were like the best person with knowing all the vitamins, it was still real scary and very touching to watch the people in Italy singing to each other, right? So
Mhm.
that was when I said, I'm going to switch my focus. I'm not going to stay the way I've been. And I made the decision really without a lot of prep to say I'm going to retire. And it was because at that time, the person who I was working for, he was definitely not a believer that any of this stuff was real. And he was asking us to basically come in on the weekend to check emails for no reason but to just be at work. It wasn't as if there was something at that moment that was life or death. And I thought, this guy, perhaps not being knowledgeable, he could cause us to transition. And I didn't look like I do now, right? I was uh almost 280 pounds or
No
so back
way.
then. and high
Wow.
blood pressure. When they talked about all the, what's it called, comorbidity indicators,
Comorbidities. High blood
I'm like,
pressure.
I got too many, and so it
Were
was
you
real.
diabetic or pre-diabetic?
I wasn't, thank goodness I wasn't, but my father, my aunts on his side, everyone had the diabetes, I think lifestyle, and regrettably, some of them had had parts cut off, the foot or whatever.
Mhm.
And so I had seen that. And on my mom's side, um, the heart attacks and dementia were too common, right? So it was the shakeup of my friend Pat. That one, combined with the realization from COVID, you might think you have a lot of time to fix all this stuff, but tomorrow is absolutely not promised, right? Because I already saw my mom, my brother, my friend Pat, my friend Tony. I saw that. That was when uh, there's a song, I'm running for my life. That's when that started. That's when I started a better prayer relationship, and saying, I'm going to try to do things differently. But it took me from 2020 until about 2022 to really, I kept it in my mind. I was moving towards it, but really, really making it a priority and making myself a priority. That took a bit of time because I believe, perhaps like some other women who are listening to this podcast, if we're not careful, sometimes busy, stressed, highly successful, high achiever type A women can equate accomplishments with self worth.
Mhm.
But really, self worth is an inside job. And if no one has really instilled in you how priceless you are, how valuable you are just for you, not because of what you do, not because of who you help, not because of your degrees, none of that, but just because who we are. If that's not really, really deeply planted, in my case, I use work and bonuses, accomplishments as a proxy for self-worth. But when I got quiet during the COVID shutdown, I realized that there was like a little girl in me who was in elementary school, and she was the valedictorian of her class, and she was giving a speech, and her parents weren't present because they were off doing a revival. And somewhere during that moment, I remember she was wearing a light blue long gown with a white square lace top because they were super religious. Nothing could show, right? We had nothing on groups that keep women really dressed with nothing showing. That was me, right?
Mhm.
And so somewhere during that window, unknowingly, the thought that I must not be enough, I must not be worthy, my parents aren't here, it planted, right?
Mhm.
And then over time, my parents were really good pastors, giving to the community. Perhaps they didn't know, hey, I've got kids at home. Maybe they need time too. My parents would have us look at what you have. What can you share? Okay, that sounds good. But if you don't feel like you have it to share and you have to share it, it can also contribute to, hmm, I must have to give to others. I must not be worthy of just keeping something because I just want to keep it. So that period of COVID shutdown helped me to really say, oh, Angela, even though you're all successful externally, on the inside, there's healing that needs to happen. And so I got a therapist. I started journaling. I started really reflecting and doing the inner work to really know flat footed, no matter what, if I'm barefoot, if I'm bald headed, if both of my boobs fall off, I'm worthy.
Mhm.
That took time.
Wow.
And as I stepped into knowing I'm worthy, my ability to set boundaries, my ability to put myself and my health first, my ability to pray and say, God, I want different. I don't know how to do this. God, could you show me what I might need to change? I don't know how to eat other than Southern cooking, right?
Mhm.
That was supposed to be healthy for you. And then that's when I met you. So for me, you were my answer to prayer. Long prayed, and I think God was like, okay, she's just knocking at this door every day. Go help her. and I found you, and I'm so grateful because you gave me the roadmap. You know, number one, you were vulnerable. I was losing my hair during that window, right? Like, oh, I had been through tragedy. I said, oh, and then your keto green approach, I was like, she wants me to give up my cookies, my cake, my pasta. I love Italian pasta. Oh, here's why. This is what it can do. And as I started to research it, I'm like, it makes sense. And then as I tried it, my body was like, yeah, I like this. And then when I learned that diabetes is considered by many to be type 3, um,
Type 3 diabetes is Alzheimer's. Yeah.
as Alzheimer's. Yeah, thank you. And I'm looking at my aunties. I'm like, I don't want that. So it was really a road of, I'm searching and you're available and you're helping all these women. And I'm grateful. I'm so grateful that you put your hand up to say, I'll tell people about stuff that they need to do. And I'll make sure that resources are out there. Um, I really think that it's the reason I'm going to live a long time. I think if I had not changed, I probably would be a statistic of dropping dead at work because I surely wasn't home,
Mhm.
right? I surely wasn't home, or a statistic of divorced, not knowing her kids, but probably the dropping dead at work or dropping dead on the way home from work because, I didn't know. Sometimes what you don't know can really, really hurt you. So, Dr. Anna, for anyone who's thinking that and I'm not anti-doctors, but for
Oh,
anyone who's
I'm not
thinking
either.
that their doctors are like the MD, whatever doctors, like many gods or whatever, many deities. Mm-mm. Doctors get trained, and depending on how long they've been out of medical school, most of them have not gotten any type of training on nutrition because I ask they don't really know more than their particular area. And sometimes they don't even have the latest information. I got an undergraduate degree, I got a master's from the top school in the country, a law degree from Georgetown. I like accomplishments. I also like doing research. And so I'm going to my doctor saying, here's the lab results. Here's this, here's that. And basically they were like, oh, you're okay. And their solution was to give me more medicine. So I started saying, hey, at one time I was taking 5 different medicines. I said, has anyone looked to see how these medicines interact with each other? And I heard you talk about your mom. And they weren't paying attention. So then I went back to I wound up having a cardiologist because I broke my foot, little type A. On a Sunday, I'm up there watering my new trees on the hillside, never thinking that if you're watering a tree on the hillside, it can make a sliding board and you can break a foot, right? Which is what happened. So when I wound up this is during COVID shutdown, when I wound up in the hospital, 2 different doctors came in to see me. They said, we just want to see who could break a foot. I forget what you call those bones, but it broke it all the way across. Nothing
Ooh.
was there. And without getting gross, the foot was doing a spin, right? Which hurt like heck. And so they said, oh, yeah, that was a nasty break. Like it was exciting a little bit for them to see such a big break, right? My regular doctor, she was my primary care doctor. She had breast cancer. She was a breast cancer survivor. But in retrospect, she was burned out and she probably didn't know it. So I kept saying to her, Dr. So and so, I'm not losing weight, but I'm doing all this stuff. Eat less. She would almost say it like judgmentally. So I'm recovering type A, but I'm still used to speaking up when I need to, right? I'm trained in conflict resolution as one of my areas of expertise and negotiation. So I said, Dr. Price, no, sorry. Okay, you can take that out. Doctor, you've been my doctor for this many years. I've never, disparaged anything that you've said to me, but when I'm bringing you a valid concern, you don't have anything beyond attempting to make me feel bad. And I said, I'm not in that space. I don't know why I'm not losing weight, but I'm looking for answers. So I left her office, went in my car and started Googling, good doctors near me. And I switched doctors, right? Because that conversation was not edifying, it wasn't uplifting. And I was like, she doesn't have anything right now that she can contribute. With my endocrinologist, at one time I had a pituitary adenoma, and I was like, "What's that?" Right? And so when I learned, "Oh, it means you don't have a period," I was like, "Yes!" I was happy as heck because at that time I was a workaholic, and I thought, "Who needs a period?" But from your program, I recognize that if you don't have a period, there are things that aren't happening in your body, right? Well, I didn't know you back then. So eventually my husband's like, "Are we gonna ever have kids?" I was like, "You want kids?" And so that's when I started seeing an endocrinologist to get on, I think it was bromocriptine, and eventually my prolactin levels went to a better place and I got pregnant, right? Um, so good endocrinologist. I met a cardiologist when I broke my foot. They did a workup before you have any type of surgery. And at that time, they said, "Oh, your heart has a little bit of a too fast, irregular heartbeat." It was some basically means it was beating too fast sometimes, but it was irregular, like you didn't pick it up. So he put me on medicine for that. And after I had the foot healed, I went back to him and I said, "Do I have to stay on this medicine? Here are the side effects." I think it was called metoprolol. I said, "Here are the side effects of this. Um, they don't sound too good. I'm trying to lose weight. I really want to get my cholesterol, my blood pressure, all that stuff to be better." And because I had lost the 40 pounds, he said, "Okay." And I told him, I said, "This is my plan." I said, "I'm staying Keto Green. I'm with Dr. Anna Cabeca and her program. I have a new primary care doctor. I'm doing this, this, and this." I laid out for him, my new approach. And I said, "Give me 6 months. If things are not continuing in the better direction, I'm willing to revisit, a lot more medicine, but I want a chance to let my body do what it's supposed to do." And so you had talked to us about intermittent fasting, so I added that into my regimen in terms of things that I do. So none of them knew. I mean, none of them really knew the stuff that you shared, right? They don't say I don't know. They're doctors, right? They're used to being the smart ones. They would say, "Oh, really?" And then they would start taking notes. I'm like, "Yeah, her podcast is called this. And here's what she said about this." I said, "She's triple board certified from Emory and she's asked to speak all over the world." And I said, "I think she's phenomenal." I said, "If you have any issues or someone who I said, I recommend that you check her out." Right. And
You're
then
so funny. I'm like, I'm honored. Thank you, really.
it's true. It's true. I want to share it because I didn't know you were my answer to prayer. Who's to say that someone else isn't sitting there saying, "I need help," and they don't know where to go. So if we're counting on just the doctors to help us stay healthy, particularly in the American way, I don't think it's going to work out. And I thank God for doctors. They play a vital role. And anyone who lives in the States who has not traveled to other countries, guess what? Our food supply, my dog is trying to get out the room, our food supply, our way of how we do things and what's allowed to go into the food, none of that really helps us to stay. It's just not good for us, right? It
Yeah,
has so
it's
many, so many
learning
different,
about the toxins and the hormone disruptors and all of
yeah,
that. And
yeah.
with that, like were you able to reduce any of the medications from 5 pills or?
Yes, but it wasn't because the doctor recommended it. It's because I went in with the test results and I made my case, right?
Mm.
So I got off of metoprolol, I got off of statin. When I came back from one of my trips, because my husband lives in England right now, and so I was going over there like every 4 weeks to 6 weeks. Okay, one of those trips, I probably didn't drink enough water. Then when I got back home, I went to the spa and did a cold plunge. I was trying to be like Tony Robbins, but I wasn't in shape like Tony Robbins. And
That's a shock on the system even. Yeah, like I'm still
yeah,
having a hard time with that one.
yeah.
So
So I woke up in the emergency room with something called global transient amnesia, and I never heard of that. When I let my dog out the door, I never heard of that. And then they said it's common when you travel too much, when you don't, um, you know, take care of your body. Basically, I learned a new condition. And so they sent me to a neurologist, and the neurologist said, "You need to get on statin." I was like, "I hear statin's not good for you." She's like, "Your cholesterol is 160. You need to be on statin." So I
You mean
said,
your LDL cholesterol? Because total the
um,
bad cholesterol was 160?
the bad one. And
Yeah.
she told me, she said, "Oh, yeah, I had a doctor friend who basically transitioned." So when I hear that word transition, it gets my
Mhm.
attention. So I started it, but I went back to my primary care doctor and I said, "She told me that I need to be on this statin. What can I do that's a natural approach? I'm willing to make changes to, not have it to stay there." So I was already in your world, but my commitment to doing the keto green and not having occasional cookie or going to a birthday party. I know that you can do certain things, but my commitment to saying I'm going to find alternatives like strawberries or blueberries instead of always thinking I need to say yes if I get offered certain things, all of that helped. And so I don't take the statin. And I talked to my primary care doctor. I saw her last Thursday. um, I asked her, "Hey, what's necessary? What do I need to do to get my blood pressure medicine?" Because they doubled everything to go lower. And so we've mapped out a plan. And I, she helped me to get the T3, free T3, T4, the stuff you talked about, right? And I got my results from some of that. And I'm going to look it up because I think you said if you have any of those antibodies, you need to pay attention to it. She told me my TPO is 61. So I'm going to go meet with her to say, I'm going to research it, but I'm going to do whatever I can do to figure out how to change that up. So I now view
So
my
it's good,
doctor.
again, you advocated for yourself. You're like, okay, I need this test. Now you have
Yeah,
the thyroid antibody. So like,
yeah,
it's a form of Hashimoto's thyroiditis, and think, okay, why is my body attacking itself? And then
yeah,
continuing to do that work, the
yeah,
trauma work,
yeah,
the food sensitivity work, the toxin work. And, um,
yeah.
it's inspirational, Angela.
For anyone who's wondering whether or not Dr. Anna is the real McCoy, I hope my story has helped you to say she is. For anyone who's been praying and saying, "God, my body isn't okay and I don't know what it is," Dr. Anna is a resource who genuinely is smart and she cares. I can't recommend her any higher than 100% without reservation. Don't walk, run to get engaged with her programs, particularly Magic Menopause, if you're in the category that can benefit from that. It has been for me a lifesaver, literally. And I believe it will be the same for you and whatever issues you have. Instead of saying Simon says, I usually will tell people Dr. Anna says,
You're so
and
funny.
it's only because she's proven to be on point and to make a huge difference. So if you're listening and you've been praying, hey, don't let God say to you if you get to heaven early, I sent you this, I sent you this, and I sent you Dr. Anna, and you left it, right? Step in and get your healing.
As I listen back to Tracy and Angela's words, I'm reminded that healing is not just about fixing symptoms, it is about reclaiming joy, self worth, and the fullness of life. I am so grateful for the openness of both Angela and Tracy to share their vulnerability and their journeys with us. Because when one woman steps into her power, she gives permission for the rest of us to do the same. So I encourage you on this journey. And if you are listening right now, I want you to take a deep breath and remember this: you are worthy of that same care. You are worthy of health, of joy, of life, of thriving at every stage of life, no matter your diagnosis. Your diagnosis is not your destiny. Your prescription is not your description. There's something that our symptoms are telling us that when we get to those underlying reasons, we improve our physiology, our mitochondrial health, our detoxification pathways, we alkalinize, we get blood sugars under control, all of that good stuff, then our life is better. We do thrive. And I think now, I had my 59th birthday, so I'm in my 60th revolution around the sun. I am just entering my second half. If we're given 120 years to live, now I'm just entering the second half of my life. And wherever you're on your journey, I want to encourage you to embrace this too. So I want to thank you for spending time with us, for embracing these stories, and for being part of a community that lifts each other up. Share this episode with someone you know that needs to hear this inspiration too, that needs to know that they are not alone and you are not alone. So stay strong, stay connected, and always, always remember there's one next right step. So if you haven't done my Magic Menopause program in the past, or participated in my free live Mastering Your Hormones masterclass, please do so now. You can sign up at dranna.com/hormones. Dr. Anna, so DRANNA.com/hormones. Sign up right now. Seats are limited. Tell your friends to join you in this journey and feel empowered. Okay, so I look forward to seeing you. I love being your girlfriend doctor. Till next time, God bless.
Thanks for watching another episode of the Girlfriend Doctor podcast. Check out all the links below for more.